I've been watching Glenn Beck for a long time, and I saw him say that Ron Paul supporters are basically all terrorists and that the Army should watch Ron Paul supporters. Then he became Ron Paul's biggest buddy. I watched him come out repeatedly and demonize the 9/11 Truth Movement or anybody who questioned anything the government did. And then when he said he was going to expose the FEMA camps and he thought they were real, I said, look out, folks, this is his MO. He acts like he's on our side. He acts like he's really investigating. And then he sucker punches you once he's gotten your confidence.
I am now working at a network that will follow through on a story. I am not a journalist. I'm just a guy who cares. I'm sorry. I'm just a guy who cares an awful lot about my country. And I think you do too. But sometimes, for political reasons or whatever reasons, people just won't follow a story.
Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people. Most of the activity of that department was to compile huge volume of information on individuals who were instrumental in creating public opinion. Publishers, editors, journalists, my KGB instructors specifically made a point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or too suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot. These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit.
I have to tell you, I'm doing a story tonight that I wanted to debunk these FEMA camps. I'm tired of hearing. You know about them?
Sure.
I'm tired of hearing. I wanted to debunk them. Well, we've now for several days done research on them. I can't debunk them. And we're going to carry the story tonight.
I don't know anything about them. So.
It is our government. If you trust our government, it's fine. If you have any kind of fear that we might be headed towards a totalitarian state, look out.
Popular Mechanics, they did an incredible job in the writing of the definitive debunking of the 9/11 conspiracy that everybody knows now is not true because of Popular Mechanics, except Rosie O'Donnell. James is here now to do the same with the FEMA camps.
He specifically was going to build a straw man argument and go after some of the fake stories of false FEMA camps, like the Amtrak train station.
This is an Amtrak repair facility in Beech Grove, Indiana. The woman who made this video initially claims that it's some kind of American Auschwitz, and they've outfitted buildings with gas, and they've got these strange turnstiles. In fact, it is a repair facility. They're repairing trains in there.
Well, trains, I believe Auschwitz had trains. I'm just saying, Jim.
Oh yes, there are real FEMA camps, and there are bills and legislation, and Americans have even been held in FEMA camps before during demonstrations in Seattle. But he didn't choose to go into any of that, even though we mailed him packets of that material.
One of those buildings has been knocked down. This video actually dates from about 1995.
So the turnstiles are there for, they were there, they're not there anymore?
Right, the turnstiles were just ordinary subway turnstiles that would be familiar to anyone who's ridden the subways in New York.
He went to the disinfo on the internet knowing he could discredit a straw man. And that's what's so despicable about Glenn Beck, is that his propaganda is so shoddy that it's just amazingly predictable.
By the way, if you want to get all of the information and more on the FEMA camps, debunk information that we couldn't get into this segment, help silence the annoying conspiracy freak in your life. There is enough out there. We don't need to make stuff up.
Glenn Beck knows he's a liar.
On May 17th of 2006, the Pentagon announced that at 1 p.m. that day they would release new footage that they claimed would clearly show Flight 77 hitting the Pentagon. In anticipation to the release of this new footage, Kara Phillips on CNN interviewed Jamie McIntyre, who is the CNN senior Pentagon correspondent. During this interview, Kara Phillips asked Jamie McIntyre what his thoughts were on some of the ideas that something other than Flight 77 had hit the Pentagon.
Having been there on September 11th, having seen the plane wreckage and photographed it myself personally, I can tell you that that's nonsense. I had a camera with me. I took pictures of some of the wreckage, some of the parts of the fuselage, a part of the cockpit, until they told us we had to move back away from the scene.
After hearing Jamie McIntyre's statements with Kira Phillips in this interview, we couldn't help but realize that they were inconsistent with his original live report at the Pentagon on September 11th. Let's take a look and listen carefully to what he said on that day.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon.
After realizing the blatant contradiction of Jamie McIntyre's statements on September 11th and the statements that he had made on Kira Phillips's interview, we decided to put out a news release on May 18th. In this news release, we quoted Jamie McIntyre's statement on September 11th and the statements that he had made on Kira Phillips's news broadcast. As a result, I received a phone call from CNN's Headline News. I was invited to be a guest on the Glenn Beck program, which is aired daily on that channel. They had asked me to come on the program to discuss some of the controversies and conspiracy theories about what had happened at the Pentagon on September 11th. Now, realizing that despite the fact that they were very friendly and professional on the telephone, this was not going to be a very friendly interview. Let's take a look at this interview, and you decide whether this is journalism or propaganda.
Conspiracy theories, sure, they're fun. They help us keep that dream alive that someday we really will walk on the moon, and that next Christmas your stocking could be stuffed with an Elvis comeback album. Actually, some aren't so fun. Ever since 9/11, a bunch of theorists, otherwise known as people with active imaginations, no common sense, and a lot of time on their hands, have insisted that explosives inside the World Trade Center brought the towers down, that all the victims in the first plane really didn't die because there were no passengers, and that no plane ever hit the Pentagon.
Ask yourself this question. Does this sound like an introduction for an investigative piece of journalism with an honest desire to get to the truth? Or does this sound more like an ad hominem hit piece with a design to discredit and ridicule the messenger rather than address the issues and the evidence presented?
There's a documentary you can't get off of you can get off of a website, but for some reason they're not letting you buy it at Blockbuster, and now available is a director's cut that insists all of it is a hoax. Dave Von Kleist, you produced it. Tell me, sir, how is this not a plane? Right there. Can we freeze that and show that box? How's that not a plane? That's a big white object of some sort. That's right. It's either a plane or a naked Michael Moore headed for the buffet.
Glenn Beck, you're absolutely right, and you've just proven my point. This photograph does show something. It's either a plane or a naked Michael Moore heading for the buffet table, but it could also be an A-3 Sky Warrior jet or a Global Hawk missile. The fact is, this photograph shows something, but it proves nothing.
And yet, Jamie McIntyre on CNN yesterday stated that he had photographed pieces of the cockpit and the fuselage, and Jamie McIntyre also stated on September 11th that upon his close inspection, there were no pieces of recognizable wreckage from any type of a large aircraft. He stated that there was no fuselage, there were no wings, no engines, nothing that you could recognize as a large aircraft.
What's in Area 51? Is it aliens or office supplies?
The desperate attempt to somehow link me to aliens, an Elvis comeback album, a two-nosed Osama, and Area 51 is nothing more than another example of how ridicule and condescension are utilized in a last-ditch effort to somehow draw attention away from evidence and information that is damning to the conventional wisdom of the official story. Now, many of the Glenn Beck listeners may have bought into this ploy, but to those with the ability to recognize it, it was nothing more than an assault on the evidence and information and an insult to the families who lost loved ones on September 11th. Jamie McIntyre appeared on Anderson Cooper's 360 program in what appeared to be a damage control interview. Obviously, he was responding to our news release and my appearance on the Glenn Beck Show. He was claiming that statements he made in his report on September 11th were taken out of context.
The websites often take statements out of context, such as this exchange from CNN, in which I, myself, appear to be questioning whether a plane really hit the building.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
In fact, I was talking about an eyewitness who thought the plane landed short of the Pentagon.
And now let's listen to Jamie McIntyre's live report again on September 11th.
From my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual site of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around.
It appears that the only person taking Jamie McIntyre's statements out of context is Jamie McIntyre.